Hi, everybody. We are back live in Saratoga for Skidmore's Giving Day. And here with me now, we have Dean Mendes, Associate Director of Admissions, and John Chaplin, Director of Principal Gifts and International Advancement. Welcome to you both. John and Dean both travel extensively internationally for Skidmore, recruiting students and providing opportunities for alumni, parents, and friends to be engaged with the college. They each have more than a decade of experience here and have been pivotal in the way that our international efforts have evolved and grown. So thanks again for joining us. Tell us about Skidmore's efforts internationally.
Sure, I'll start to say we've been fortunate to have alums from around the world for decades, and so I don't mean to say recent activity really means we weren't doing some of this for many years in the past, but we have alums who graduated from Skidmore 40, 50 years ago, living in different parts of the world. And of course, the numbers are larger now, but we've been engaging our international alums in a kind of ad hoc way in past years, but for the last 5 or 10 years, we've done a lot more systematic building of local communities of alums in Europe and Asia mainly, but also other parts of the world. And they're more engaged now than ever before with events and supporting our recruiting efforts, of course, giving financially to the college, and equally importantly, helping our students access career advice and ultimately internships and jobs.
That's great. Actually, and before I get to the next question, I want to let everyone know that they're going to take questions. So if you have any questions for John or Dean, please send them to #SkidsForLife or use the chat button. So can you tell? Oh,
let me
go ahead.
talk
Sorry.
about the admissions part of
ahead.
that. So in the admissions office, we have really grown our footprint internationally in the last 6 or 7, 8 years, and our recruitment has grown, and consequently our enrollment has grown as well. We are now at 11% international. We were maybe 2 or 3% international overall in the student body 6 or 7 years ago. So those numbers mean more alumni, young alumni now as well. We've also traveled to more countries than we have had in the past. There are 3 staff members in admissions that do international travel.
And how many alumni and parents live abroad?
So right now we have a little over 1,000 alumni spread around the world that we know of. And by the way, we only know you are internationally based if you've told us you're internationally based. So we periodically find alums whose addresses in our database are saying New York or Boston, but in fact they're in Kuala Lumpur or Madrid or some other far-flung place. So those we know about, a total of about 1,100.
And with enrolled students, we have 282 students who are not U.S. citizens, but we also have 51 students who are U.S. citizens but who attended a high school outside of the United States.
So consequently, we have well over 300 parents of current students who are based outside the U.S.
And where do we concentrate our international outreach?
Well, we can't go everywhere in admissions, so we have tried to spread our travels around. We did 3 or 4 years in Latin America and have shifted gears, and now we're spending that money in India. We have consistently gone to Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore. We have done some time in Northeast Asia. I had gone to Seoul and to Tokyo, and my predecessor had done that as well. A little bit in China. Always have gone to Europe. We have broadened to some areas in Southern Africa. I visited Jordan for the last 6 or 7 years. So kind of spreading it around as much as we can, and trying to do at least 3 years in an area to see if we can gain some interest, and if it doesn't work out, then we'll shift and go to some other areas.
On the advancement side, we concentrate our activity where there are the largest groups of alums, and to a degree now, current parents. And that means London is by far our largest alumni hub. And I tend to go there once a year. In fact, I was just there with President and Mrs. Glotzbach 2 weeks ago for a very large and energized event, which was great. We have had a couple of trustees emerge onto our board from the London area, and it's a robust recruiting zone for us as well. So London's been an active hub for us, and from there we have active alumni groups in, not surprisingly, where we have strong student study abroad programs, Paris and Madrid. We also have active alumni groups in Geneva, Switzerland, and now a smaller group growing in Zurich. But Asia is the other large hub, with London being the first largest number of alums. The second largest hub for alums is Hong Kong. Some of those are native to Asia, but we also, many expats from the US and other parts of the world end up doing some part of their career in Hong Kong. So that's a really neat, diverse group of alums for us. And in fact, President and Mrs. Glotzbach were there with me as well about 2.5 weeks ago. And other areas of Asia that are growing are, not surprisingly, mainland China, where we have large parent groups, fewer alums, but current parent groups in Shenzhen, just across the border from Hong Kong, and in Shanghai and Beijing. But other areas where there are active alumni presence in Asia are Bangkok and Singapore as well, and to a lesser extent, Tokyo and Taiwan.
Wow. So outside of just traveling there, how are we recruiting international students, and how do they learn about Skidmore?
Well, there's a lot of ways that students can find out about colleges and universities today with the way technology is, through websites, through search engines. A lot of the students that can afford will have private counselors that will, some of them will be from the US, that will know how the process works. The liberal arts has been something that we've really had to educate some of the international high school students, families about, and that's slowly catching on. So this model that we have here is not well known around the world, and there's a few liberal arts schools in other parts of the world. Most of them are in the US. So teaching that, there are some companies out there that we associate with that put our name out there, and we subscribe to some of those that help us get our name out there. When I travel, I typically travel with other liberal arts colleges, so I'm not traveling by myself. There might be 4 or 5 of us that travel in a group, and we can draw more numbers that way as well. I typically travel with other liberal arts colleges when I'm going abroad.
And I'll add, because props out to our alums who facilitate the admissions work of Dean and his team. We are fortunate to have essentially 1,000 ambassadors in our alumni base who are promoting the benefits of a liberal arts college and the benefits of Skidmore. And I'll give you one just anecdote that it's just hard to imagine that this would have happened a few years ago, but now this is the kind of cool thing that happens. Skidmore's polo team was invited by a group in China that hosts an intercollegiate polo tournament. It included Oxford, Harvard, Cornell, and we were the smallest institution by far that competed in the city of Tianjin, which is about an hour east of Beijing. In July, our polo team was flown on the dime of this organization to Tianjin, China, where the polo team competed and ended up taking 3rd place in this competition. Well, of course, they're also doing the players, our students, are doing an admissions session for local students interested in Skidmore. And indeed, one of those students was interested enough from the July exposure to our players to come into Beijing when we were there a couple weeks ago with President and Mrs. Glotzbach, and participated in our event there, and met parents of current students and some of our alumni, and seemed pretty fired up about Skidmore. That's a true global kind of partnership. Students and alums partnering with current parents to woo bright students from around the world.
That is so fascinating, and it actually is a good segue into this question that we received from one of our audience members, is while recruiting international students presents challenges to an institution, is it difficult to maintain relationships with international alumni? And then the second part of that is, what steps does Skidmore take to create relationships with our international alumni?
Well, it's certainly true that where students are, of course, motivated and their families very motivated to engage with Skidmore if they're hoping to apply and ultimately be accepted here. Alumni, of course, lead busy lives. They're involved in other organizations besides just Skidmore. But what we found is for a local community to be really vibrant, one, the college needs to commit to support their efforts, and we do that through staff like myself visiting, but also through our alumni relations and college events team actively supporting their event planning and execution. But what it really takes is local volunteer partners. It takes a couple of alums in each core market to agree to give their time and insight to partner with us to deliver compelling alumni programming that adds current value to the alumni's lives. They are absolutely interested in what's happening at Skidmore, where we stand in the market, what their favorite professors are doing today, but they also want to be networking with each other, helping recruit for the college, but also helping their own professional careers flourish. And that is a very relevant part of what we're doing. Alumni come together, they make important connections that then can be sustained through individual one-on-one contact after our events. So to those volunteers, a huge shout out to you. Thank you. That is the real engine to keeping local groups engaged and promoting our admissions work, donating to the college, and then helping our students find professional activities. The three legs of that stool are really all rest on the efforts of leaders who actively engage a talented, positive group of alums.
I would also say on the admissions side, we have an admissions alumni contact program where we have alumni who help support our efforts, and they can do interviews, they can go to college fairs that we can't get to, and we really need more international alumni to help out. And John has been connecting me with some. He just connected me with one last week that is going to hopefully be on board with being what we call an AAC. So if there are people out there watching that want to get involved and want to help out, that's a good way to stay connected and to help recruit students and answer questions about Skidmore. And that really helps us because we can't be everywhere.
And so an engagement is such a big part of the work that you all do. How does that translate those relationships into alumni giving? From international alumni?
And we're seeing some really nice increased participation and just overall dollars of support that helps drive Skidmore's progress from our alumni around the world. Let me just share an anecdote of a recent gathering in Madrid, which is, as I referenced earlier, one of the prime study abroad platforms for us. Skidmore actually has partners with Tufts University, and our two institutions have a great office in Madrid where Skidmore supports about 15 students every fall, and that number jumps to closer to 30 students every spring, where juniors tend to concentrate their study abroad in the spring. Well, I visited with the Madrid program, which actually hosted our alumni gathering. The director of Skidmore Madrid kindly allowed us to use their facilities and hosted a lovely gathering of some of our current students. We're mingling with some of our alums. And while Madrid is a market where we're fortunate to have some more generous donors who've been out professionally in their lives and been successful in their endeavors and are giving five-figure, four-figure, or high three-figure gifts to the college, we have a raft of young alums who, many of them studied abroad in the center when they were Skidmore juniors. They're now working as teachers in Madrid. There are about a dozen of them. And at our gathering, we had such sense of community and pride at the Skidmore overall community and the community in Madrid, where a lot of advice was given to the current students and to the recent alums. And of course, the recent alums are giving great advice to the students. But a lot of gifts were being made to the college where, as I say, some alums are in a position to be more generous and can really move the needle with their dollar giving. But participation giving, our international alums get it when they're presented with the proposition, we need your vote of endorsement of the college, your vote of support with a gift of any dollar amount. We had alums giving really the cash in their pockets. to us in the moment because they wanted to be part of that community and part of that pride. And frankly, they realize it helps the value of their degree today, and that the participation percentage influences our rankings by US News and other organizations. So the activity, the networking, the recruitment, it all translates into that sense of community, and as a direct result, gifts to the college, where we probably think we had a dozen donors emerge out of a pretty, not a huge gathering. Every alum who was at the event gave. So that's a great story. Go Skidmore Madrid.
Yay! And that's actually a great segue in terms of our Giving Day and why we're here. And the last question I'll ask before we sort of close up our time is, tell us about the great enthusiasm you see for Skidmore worldwide.
Well, it is growing. I think that the more applications that we see, the more students that enroll here, the word spreads quickly with the way that communication works today, especially with prospective students and college-age students. Word travels very quickly, so that we've seen that. We had a record number of applications last year, 9,100 applications. 27% of them were international applications. Right. And that's by far the largest we've ever had, and more than many of our peers as far as that percentage goes. So it shows that Skidmore has a lot of enthusiasm out there. People are recognizing the name. People recognize the value of the experience here. I think being in New York definitely helps us, and access to New York City. Most of the places that we travel to for recruitment purposes are larger cities, so having that access to a major hub, even though it's not real close, that resonates with students. Having a business program really helps students maybe look away from the pre-professional programs at universities and look at the liberal arts when we have that program and many of our peers don't.
And your question about enthusiasm is perfectly timed from my humble perspective here, in that President and Mrs. Glotzbach and I just completed an around the world, literally, tour holding events and individual meetings with alumni, parents, and prospective students. I'll just tick off the places we visited on this trip. We went from an incredibly enthusiastic evening in New York City, where donors at our Leadership Presidents Society level are invited to a thank you dinner hosted by Skidmore in New York, which was an incredible night for all those who were there. Again, thank you for that leadership support. But from that event, President Mrs. Glotzbach and I flew to Asia, where we had our visit itinerary included Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, included Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Beijing, and then flew around to London and then back. And in almost each of those cities, we had events that were very well attended, with great Q&A and great networking among the participants, where there's just that very palpable sense that Skidmore is global, it is innovative, and it is respected around the world. And that energy really feeds on itself. It's an exciting time to be part of a global Skidmore.
Exciting indeed, and so much pride. Thank you so much for both of you for joining us, and stay tuned. We'll be back more live from Skidmore.
Thank you.
Thank you.